CNN did a piece about the Israeli government torturing innocent Palestinians in a military prison. Now we have France 24 English doing a piece on it as well. Hopefully, more and more news outlets will investigate what's going on here and force the Israeli government to admit to their torture.
The demonstration is illegal. In the heart of the Negev desert, these Israeli activists have entered a high-security zone. We're near the Sdei Teiman military base.
Hidden here is a torture camp where Gazan detainees undergo severe abuse, humiliation, and violence. Gazan detainees are being held here in an open-air prison while they are continuously cuffed and blindfolded. This place embodies these crimes more than any other. Therefore, we call for the closure of Sdei Teiman, to stop torture, and to free all political prisoners.
All they get is just a few minutes in front of the base. The Israeli army has rejected our request to film inside. It won't say how many prisoners there are, but claims most are suspected of terrorist activity. It says some took part in the 7th of October attack. Others were arrested inside Gaza.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
They're not happy about
I mean, that's what the United States did to justify their kidnapping and torture of people. Claim they were either suspected of terrorism or they caught them doing terrorism, and then they would be sent to Gitmo where they would never be charged, but they would be tortured.
the presence of the pacifists. In no time at all, they're taken aside.
He said that we are supporting murders from the Hamas, from the Nokba. We are just here to say stop for the torturing and the murder.
What goes on behind this barbed wire? How many prisoners are there hidden from our view? The base is divided into two separate zones. Those tents in the distance are a temporary hospital. That's where wounded prisoners are kept. Sdei Teiman also acts as a prisoner sorting center. The prisoners are handcuffed, blindfolded, and kept behind barbed wire. Very few have gained access to the military prison. Even rarer are those who agree to talk about it. But this Israeli doctor is speaking out. He spent several hours in Sdei Teiman. For his safety, we've hidden his voice and face.
Wow, CNN had three IDF members who were speaking out who either had some experience with Taiwan or something else. Now, France 24 English has a doctor who worked at Sdei Teiman speaking out. This is pretty big.
All of the patients were handcuffed on each arm and leg, and handcuffs went to the side of the bed. All of them appeared to be blindfolded, and of the few patients that I managed to treat, they were all naked, besides wearing diapers. I would estimate that there were some 15 to 20 patients. I'm unaware if they have more tents beside this one.
Other Israeli doctors have described similar cases. One even addressed a letter to the Israeli authorities, published by the Haaretz newspaper.
Just this week, 2 prisoners had their legs amputated because of handcuff injuries, which unfortunately is a routine event. We are all complicit in breaking the law.
Wow. It is routine for them to amputate people's legs because of handcuff injuries. And likely the handcuffs being too tight, causing infection, and causing the leg to become gangrenous.
If you look at the Geneva Convention, I could see no reason why the patients at Sdei Teiman, or at least those convicted of being members of Hamas or Islamic Jihad, should not be considered prisoners of war.
The Israeli army is investigating the deaths of 2 prisoners who died after being beaten on their way to Sdei Teiman prison. In total,
Wow. Beaten on their way to the prison, they couldn't even control their bloodlust to have them transported to prison. They beat them to death. And we're supposed to believe that the Israeli government is the good guys while they're torturing and beating innocent people.
The military police are investigating the deaths of 35 prisoners from Gaza in Israeli prisons and detention centers. In Gaza, witnesses are beginning to speak out. At the end of November, these images were shown around the world. Mass arrests in Gaza. The prisoners are naked, seated in a pickup truck, destination Israel. Among them, ordinary civilians, like the journalist Dia al-Kakhlout. In mid-January,
Yeah, and this is one reason why more and more people are turning against Israel, because there's more and more evidence of the abuses that they commit against Palestinians, innocent Palestinians who have done nothing wrong, and the Israeli government continually wants to justify it with whatever excuses they can create.
just after his release, he spoke about his experience to Reuters.
They transferred us by truck to the detention centers, and during the transfer, I was assaulted several times. They taped my mouth, and I heard 7 or 8 soldiers laughing at me. They were saying, "Journalist, journalist," and they were all hitting me.
A little
While they were abusing him even more and laughing at him because he was a journalist, and they know how abusive the Israeli government is actually towards journalists. The IDF and a lot in the Israeli government, they hate any journalist that doesn't side with the Israeli government.
further north in the center of Gaza, our team met Dr. Saleh Elewa, just released after 4 months of detention. He was on duty in the emergency center of the Al-Shifa hospital on 7th of October. After his arrest, he spent 48 hours in Sdei Teiman, including 15 hours of violent interrogation.
The first question they asked was, "Where are the hostages?" I was shocked, and I thought, "What do you mean, where are the hostages? How should I know where the hostages are?" They asked me illogical questions and tortured me because they thought I wasn't giving them good information or that I was hiding something. They had no right. It was an inhumane interrogation using illegal methods and against a civilian doctor like me. What did I do wrong to have been on duty on October 7th?
See, the thing is, most IDF members and most of the Israeli government officials thinks every single Palestinian is Hamas and that they are privy to all information that Hamas knows. So they're going to kidnap and torture anyone to get information because they honestly don't care who's innocent or not because they think everybody is a terrorist.
It has, however, been established by the Israeli army that hostages were indeed taken to the Al-Shifa hospital on 7th of October. In these images, we can see one of them wounded in a corridor. Dr. Elewa is adamant that he wasn't aware of them, and in any case, he says, that wouldn't justify the conditions in which prisoners were held.
Sometimes we managed to talk among ourselves and could see beneath our blindfolds. They didn't use dogs against me, but I saw someone who had been bitten in the abdomen by a dog. You could even see his internal organs. Another person had been bitten on his thigh.
We contacted
Wow, somebody bitten so badly that you can see the internal organs. That is truly disgusting. And that's something the IDF uses a lot on these prisoners and other prisoners, dog attacks.
the Israeli army, which responded to us in writing. It confirmed that those released back to Gaza had no established link with armed groups.
The mistreatment of detainees during their time in detention or whilst under interrogation violates IDF values and contravenes IDF orders and is therefore absolutely prohibited.
Right. Something the an Israeli spokesperson is going to say something like this when they're being asked about the torture, but if it violates IDF values and orders, why are so many IDF members torturing and beating innocent Palestinians on the way to detention or in detention? Um, and that is because it actually doesn't violate their IDF values, because that's something that they routinely do.
At the end of May, several associations for the defense of human rights brought an action before the Israeli court for the closure of Sdei Teiman. The inquiry is still underway. The statements by whistleblowers and former prisoners have lifted the veil on certain practices. But there are still many grey areas about what really goes on in this military base in the heart of the desert.
I mean, Hamas is bad for what they do, but the Israeli government is showing that it's worse because it does all the same things Hamas does, but under the cover of like fighting for freedom, self-defense, and any other BS things that the Israeli government